that we're trying to promote in all the different cities that we're currently working. The storytelling doesn't only need to happen in our homes, it can also happen in a park. It can also happen in a bench in any public space that we have around the city. It can also happen even in the in the bus when we're traveling a long distance to our services. It can also happen in a health center. Okay, many of our families have long waiting hours in the health centers just to get an appointment. Why can we make these waiting hours be more positive interactions among children and parents? So these are some of the piloting experiences that we have around the different cities in Latin America. Just to mention some of the main behaviors that we're trying to promote. So I talked about storytelling. Another very important behavior that we're trying to promote is breastfeeding. Breastfeeding around the world continues to decrease. And as we all know through evidence, again, we really need to recover this behavior and practice, because it's definitely, from a health perspective, it has a very positive impact in the development of a child. So this is another thing that we are trying to promote in these positive interactions between caregivers and children. The third behavior that we're trying to promote in general has to do with having healthy behaviors around nutrition, and this applies worldwide, globally. I think we heard, for example, in India, in countries like India and cities like Bhubaneswar, we still have lots of problems with stunting and malnutrition in general. But in many other cities around the world, one of the problems that we have has to do with obesity and overweight. And this also has to do with the way we plan a city, okay? So in many cities, and if we start analyzing data, and that's why it's so important to have data as one of the main components that we work in Istanbul 95, is because by analyzing data, you can also see, do all families, do all neighborhoods have access to healthy food? Can they access healthy food? Are there like is there like fresh fruit close to the places where people are living? And then you realize that the biggest gaps are usually in the poorest or the most vulnerable neighborhoods. So we also need to think about those kind of gaps. And this also has to do with creating positive interactions among families, caregivers, and young children. And just probably one last behavior that we think it's very important is this whole conscience of creating positive relations that has to do with very simple tips to parents, right? Like many times it has to do with, are we really like watching our child when we're raising our child? Are we creating this kind of affection that creates a positive impact in our child? So these are some of the main things that we're currently working. We're very happy to have Istanbul among one of the key cities that we will be working Urban 95 as a general global approach. And we believe that through the experience that the Bernard Van Leer Foundation has in early childhood development, having worked during the last 50 years in over 50 different countries, that the fact that we're working not specifically only with the typical sectors that are involved with early childhood development allows us to reach a largest population that will be engaged with the development of young children. Thank you.